Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you finally made it. You made it to the weekend. The weekend is here. Of course, you know, it's early morning or late night, depending on where you're looking at. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, 8 o'clock Eastern, across our YouTube channel, John Martin Talks, spell it out. We're also on various Facebook sites in the morning, and we're broadcast on America's Voice News as an evening show, a late night show. Check them out. You can also check them out for all things Trump. We're getting ready to talk about the big press conference that was held yesterday. And if you want to see it in its entirety, a good place to go is America's Voice News, and they have it up there. But check them out. They're on channel 219 Dish Network, the Pluto channel. They're also streaming on pretty much all your streaming services like Roku, Fire Stick, and Apple TV. You can download a free app on your Android and your iPhone as well. So check it out. Of course, you can always, as I say, watch our show on our YouTube channel. We're now on Parler. I'm still working out some of those details over the weekend after I get back from fishing, because I'm going fishing as soon as this show is over. That we're on Parler, we're on MeWe. We're going to end up being on Rumble and various others as well. So hang in there with us. Again, make any suggestions of different types of social media networks that you would like to see, and we'll go on there. We're also got a big announcement that we'll do Monday. We're going to be on a brand new network called Recoil, and we'll tell you more about that as well as that time goes on. But the press conference, boy, what a press conference it was. If you don't know what I'm talking about, stay tuned. We'll tell you in just a moment. And then we're going to talk about the state of California and all the lockdowns and stuff that's out there. You know, we talked a little bit yesterday about Gavin Newsom and some of the shenanigans that he's pulled. Well, now the state of California, the school system, and yes, Gavin Newsom has been accused of being racist. And we'll talk about all that. But before we go any further, I got to talk about our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited, otherwise known as BDU, your headquarters for anything Second Amendment related, from guns, ammunition, delivered directly to your door at factory direct pricing, including swag and tactical gear, thousands of items, anything Second Amendment, including, yes, I said it, guns and ammunition, delivered directly to your door at factory direct pricing. The way to access them is no matter when or where you're watching our show, look above the video. You'll see a show description. You'll scroll down on it. You will see a link to our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited. Check them out. We are literally becoming your headquarters for the Second Amendment, politically, products, everything. Check it out. All right, we're going to get into this press conference. Now, in case you're new to the show, first of all, welcome. Howdy, how are you? Glad to have you here. But generally how I do things is I use a news story from various sources as a template for what I'm talking about. In this press conference, there really isn't a whole lot of good news stories to use. So I watched the whole thing. It was an hour and 40 minutes. I went back and watched it again. You know, I watch a lot of things so you don't have to. And it's pretty interesting, but I'm just going to give you my thoughts based on what was said. All right. So first of all, it was led by none other than the mayor, America's mayor, Rudolph Giuliani. I actually met Mr. Giuliani a couple times. I met him when he was actually making a name for himself as a prosecutor in New York City, because that's when I was living and working up there, was during when you had the Teflon Don up there and everything else. And that's when Rudy kind of made a name for himself. And then when I left, he was just about to run for mayor, and he changed that city dramatically. Because I can tell you, when I was in New York, I love New York, but like Times Square was a cesspool. And I hear it's becoming that again, but Rudy Giuliani cleaned all that up. Now, he wouldn't know me from Adam, but I did actually meet him at a political function many moons ago, because I've been involved in some form of I've been a political junkie my whole life. In case you don't know about that, I know we got a lot of new viewers and listeners out there. You can see a little description of me on Parler and places like that. But basically, I grew up in a political family. My father was a mayor of Hawthorne, my little town I grew up in, later a county commissioner, then a state legislature, and literally became one. His name was Sid Martin. If you want to look him up, check him out. He's got roads named after him, everything else. He was one of the most prominent political figures in the 70s through the early 90s in the state of Florida. There's just no other way around. He's got fingerprints all over. So he was a Democrat. I grew up as a Democrat. Now, I told you yesterday, I think, the first president I ever voted for, because I voted as soon as I was eligible to vote at 18 at that time, I voted for none other than Ronald Reagan. And my dad was like, he was supporting the Democrat. He had to at the time, or at least he thought he did. And but the Democratic Party that my father grew up with, that I grew up with, basically, I came of age, or I was born in 1960. So, John F. Kennedy painted a big shadow. He was a hero of my dad's and that kind of thing. And remember what Kennedy said? Not ask at his inauguration, ask not what your country can do, but what you can do for your country. I love those words. Those words have a lot of meaning to me. They don't have any meaning to the modern Democratic Party. They simply don't. So yeah, I've been involved in politics myself. I became mayor of my little town of Hawthorne, Florida myself. I ran for higher office, county commission. I didn't make it. But I was the state committee man for the Republican Party until just this past month. Or actually, I guess I am until the next reorganizational meeting. I'm going to run for vice chair this time around. So I'm keeping my finger on the, the deal, so to speak. The deal, the deal, right? Joe Biden. But I became a Republican officially a little over a decade ago, basically. And, I've been one ever since. I'm not always toting water for the Republican Party. My big thing, and I guess I hadn't said this in a while, so let me go ahead and get it out. The Democratic Party that I grew up, as I said earlier, is just dead. It doesn't exist anymore. It is now just, and I'm not talking about all Democrats. I'm talking about the ones that run the party. They are hardcore progressive leftists, period. And basically they are taking us in the direction of communism. And we're going to keep talking socialism. Yes, socialism sucks, like it says right there, but we're actually moving beyond socialism. We're going to jump it right to communism, I think, but more about that later. But so I'm not saying that the Republican Party has all the answers, but at least there are a handful of people actually elected that are asking the right questions and trying to do the right thing. Now, some of them that have been up there forever and a day, not so much. Because the swamp is full of swamp rats, and they are of all stripes, Republican, Democrat, and everything in between. Anyway, I digress. Let's get on with this. So the press conference. What a press conference. I mean, wow, what a press conference it was. It was led by Rudolph Giuliani. Also, Sidney Powell and several others were there. You can see a picture of them. I'm sure you'll recognize them. But the two main characters were Mr. Giuliani and Sidney Powell, who did a terrific job. Now, they covered a broad range of charges, accusations. They did present evidence. We're going to talk about a little of that in just a moment. But it was a sweeping press conference. And Giuliani talked for a good chunk of it. And they took some questions at the end. And I can tell you, Giuliani was in attack dog form. I don't know if he has any other form than that, but he's a pretty good attack dog. And during his presentation, and even in his answers to the questions later, he essentially sprinkled it with defending the president and attacks on the press. And he was as harsh, if not harsher, on the press than President Trump has been. And so he was out there. Sidney Powell, she talked about it, but she was a little bit more subtle about it than that. But they had a wide range of charges. And to me, there's two main parts to this. So, and let me just first say, understand, hang in there with me on this, because some of you may not like what I have to say about this, but I saw it basically separated into two parts. Now, let me say this before I go any further. Obviously, time will tell on any of this stuff when it comes to getting President Trump over the hump and back for 4 more years versus cleaning up the system and all that. So only time is going to tell what that is. And this press conference, I believe, was a start in that direction. But I literally saw it as two separate parts. There's the one part, and we're going to get into specifics in just a moment. There's the one part that that is about re-electing President Trump, getting him the election that he won. One thing about it, I was already convinced of this, been convinced since November 3rd, that President Trump won on November 3rd. They've been trying to steal it from him. And as I've been telling you, and some of you have beat me up a little bit for it, and I'm a big boy, I can take it. Did cheaters do sometimes win? And there is no guarantee that President Trump is going to get through this. I'm with you. I keep the faith. I got my Trump sign still up big time. And 4x8 going right into my little town on a piece of property, the main drag. If you're coming into Hawthorne from the main city of Gainesville, you see Trump, the first thing you see. That's my property. Don't burn it down, but hey, I'm just telling, I'm outing myself. That sign is mine, baby, and I'm dadgum proud of it. I guess I should take a picture of it. But President Trump may not be successful at this. He's definitely got a lot of evil forces against him. So to me, there's the one side about simply getting President Trump the due he is owed for the election that he won. That's one piece. Then there's another piece that is about fraud in general and our election system that has been rotten for quite some time. Donald Trump, once again, one of the great things he's done as president, has exposed the rot in our system completely. And he's exposed the swamp within the electoral system, without a doubt. And so there's that part that we need to clean up no matter what happens with the president. Because if we don't, we're not only not going to get President Trump over the top, but we're probably never going to get a conservative, let alone a Republican, and there are sometimes differences, ever elected again. So I see it as two parts. Let me just reiterate that. One is about getting President Trump the election that he won. And the other is about cleaning up the system that is long overdue, that predates Donald Trump, that he simply exposed. Okay. So one of the things was about voter fraud. And essentially, Giuliani, he presented some affidavits. He talked about a lot of others, and rightfully so. He talked about how he had several hundred affidavits, and he pointed out that people swore under oath, under penalty of perjury, that these things were true. He had one woman in particular. She wasn't there, but he was named. Her name was Jessie something. Go back and look at it. And I'm not outing her. She was outed already, and she gave her permission. Keep in mind that, and Giuliani referred to this, that stepping forward and bringing testimony in support potentially of Donald Trump, or supporting or exposing the rot and the corruption in our system, leaves you at great peril. You literally could be risking your life, let alone your lifestyle, for all that's happening. Keep in mind that the two canvassers in Detroit just recently, and we talked about this a couple of days ago. By the way, if you want to see our podcast, go back and look at our YouTube channel, John Martin Talks, spell it all the way out. We're also on John Martin Facebook page, other Facebook pages, and we're archived as well on America's Voice News. We're now putting them up on Parler and MeWe, so check it out. I'm still learning that process, so bear with me. If you want to be a follower or a friend of mine, absolutely do it, but bear with me. It's a work in progress. We should have it straightened out in the next couple of days. But so there's the voter fraud aspect of this. And back to this, Billy Bob, if you hadn't met my psychic sidekick, he says, he keeps me straight, and he reminds me, get back on track. He has a Twitter handle, by the way. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. So, we had these two canvassing members of Wayne County, which is Detroit essentially, and they were two Republicans, two Democrats. They were locked. The Republicans not wanting to certify the election of Wayne County, and the Democrats, of course, doing it. We showed that they were under attack. They ended up, they being the Republicans, caving in and voting to certify the elections with the caveat of, the secretary would, or the supervisor election, Secretary of State would look into these irregularities. It later, fast forward, that the secretary was on like CNN and basically says, I'll think about it. I'll look at it. Essentially, then those people were threatened quite a bit. We played it. Go back and look at our show a couple days ago. We played it where those two canvassing members were literally threatened. And now they have rescinded their vote. As of this moment, I'm not sure if that actually has any legal force or not. So we'll keep you posted on that. But how that relates to what Giuliani talked about, and Sidney Powell, she mentioned it as well, that if you come forward even as part of just the legal defense team. A lawyer, and Rudy Giuliani made a great case about this, and this should not happen in America. You should not be worried about your job, let alone your life and your families, based on what political choice you make. That's not supposed to happen in the United States of America, but it is happening every minute of every day. People are being doxxed that are just average citizens standing up to volunteer like those canvassing board members. And I'm telling you right now, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I was going to wait till later on to say this. We got a choice to make, ladies and gentlemen. And this has nothing to do with Donald Trump, although I believe we need to support him and everything else. We have to decide, are we going to be subjects of the realm? Or are we going to be citizens of the United States of America? Because there is a difference. The Democrats that have taken over that Democratic Party, progressive leftists, they consider us just subjects of their realm. We're supposed to just take it, turn the other cheek and say, yeah, and our next, and once they slap us upside the head, we're both supposed to bow down and say, can I have another one, please? I mean, that's what they want, right? Shut down Thanksgiving, everything, shut churches down, everything. Even Republicans doing it. It's not limited to Democrats. So we have a choice to make. Are we going to be subjects of the realm, bowing down, man, sheeple, bah? Are we going to be citizens of the United States of America? Because if you want to be a citizen, you have to be responsible. Like Benjamin Franklin said when they asked what he gave it. A republic, he didn't say if I told about himself, he's talking about the American people, if you can keep it. Our founding fathers have laid it out pretty clearly for us. Thomas Jefferson said that if you want to be both ignorant and free, you want what never was and never will be. That's why I battle ignorance and apathy here on a daily basis, trying to keep up with Mr. TJ himself. JMT and TJ, DJT, all these kind of things. So we have a choice to make. Do we want to be citizens of the great republic, the experiment we call the United States of America? Or are we just going to be sheeple? Because that's what's really at stake here. And no one person, as great as Donald Trump has been and is as president, no one person is capable of, he can expose the rot. We got to chop it out ourselves. So I just see like no matter what happens, because I hear so many people waiting for someone else to do it. And it ain't going to happen. We're going to have to be citizens of the United States of America, not sheeple. All right, so there's two main parts. There's this voter fraud, and I could get into all the details, but basically dead people voting, ballots being misused, ballot dumps at 2 o'clock in the morning, all those things. Most of you have already heard some ideas of that. Giuliani laid out some real evidence. He's going to present that to court. So to me, that has to do directly with this election and whether or not Donald Trump can get over the hump and get his rightful due and be reelected president of the United States. Then there's the Dominion system that Ms. Powell laid out real well. That's a bit murkier. Now, I'm not saying it's not strong. Don't misunderstand me at all. And yes, the idea that we actually have real foreign intervention in our elections by having these servers overseas, and Ms. Powell pointed that out, that came up to light just a few days ago, but she made a big case for that. I'm not sure that that's actually going to help President Trump. I'll get back to it because there is a way that it will, that it's going to help him get reelected. It could help clean up the system without a doubt. And that, in my opinion, I got a friend of mine that, watches the show a lot. Cliff, how you doing, man? Give him a shout out there. And we were talking on my way into the studio this morning about what his thoughts were, because he wanted, and he's kind of the mind. Now, believe me, he wants this is a guy who pushed hard for Trump, still is, still out on street corners down in like Sarasota area with signs, still to this day. But he said to him, if he had to make a choice, now some of you may not like this, but he said if he had to make a choice between cleaning up the system and making it legit again, or Donald Trump being president, he'd probably go with cleaning up the system, because that's got to happen, regardless of who the next president is. And I'm not saying I 100% agree with him, because I believe we could have both. But I do understand where he's coming from, that if we don't clean up the system, we're never, not only are we not going to get Donald Trump over, but we will never have anyone remotely close to him ever be elected again. The only thing that will get elected is swamp rats. I mean, so we got to clean up the system. All right. So all of that about the voter fraud, they still got to get it to court. That's the bottom line in all of this, ladies and gentlemen, is we've got to get it to court. And there's a process. We're running out of time. Time is not on our side. It just isn't. Even if we carry this into January, which I think Donald Trump to be successful, we probably will, and I'll explain that in just a second. But it's going to take time. Ultimately, it's going to go before the Supreme Court. Here's what I just want to make sure we understand. Rudy presented direct evidence. Here's where I think the president's best chance is. The first question out the gate is there enough time, no matter what, to get this done? I think there is, but it's burning pretty fast. To me, the president's best chance, because they're going to focus on, there was like 5 or 6 states, the typical ones: Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, and Nevada. Giuliani even mentioned the state of Virginia and New Mexico. He didn't have them on the little map he had up there, but he talked about that. So I guess a lot of things are in play. But the bottom line to me is, yes, we could overturn certain, like for instance, if something happens and the vote swings in any of those states, a couple of them, especially like Michigan, Wisconsin, and either Georgia or Pennsylvania, well, that opens up a whole new ballgame, no doubt about it. But I still think the best overall chance for the president to win this thing, this is just my opinion based on the facts as we have now, and there's a lot more to come out. So this could be different a couple days from now, even Monday when I come back, Lord willing. I think the best chance for him is for these cases to basically get all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court rule essentially that certain states' elections, maybe even a group of them, are just invalid, that they're not valid. Not the whole election, but certain states, invalid. That then would go through a whole process. It would ultimately, as I understand it, come back to the House of Representatives, the U.S. House of Representatives. You may go, well, Nancy Pelosi's there. Yeah, that's true. But the way I understand this is it would go back to each state, whichever states were in question, each state, but let's just say they invalidated the whole dadgum thing. That each state would have to validate their own electoral. They would be allowed one vote for an elector to vote for president. Well, there are 27, I believe, Republican-controlled legislatures in the country right now. If all 27, actually we only need 26, right? If all 27 of those vote and their elector, those Republicans, that Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States of America. Now, you know what's going to happen on the road to that, so I'm just prepared. If that's the road we go, and I still think it's his best chance, then we are going to have you know what in the streets, because they'll literally be trying to kill us all. So we're going to have some form or fashion of street fighting and everything else. It may be inevitable no matter what happens, because it seems that way. And unless you want to go back to being a citizen of the rail, unless you want to go back to jumping in that boiling pot, I've been telling you, if you're new to the show, you might not have heard this. One of the things, that old pot, a frog in a pot, where they say you put a frog in a pot, turn it up slowly, he'll sit there and simmer and like he's in a sauna and basically boil to death. We throw him in boiling hot water, jump right out. Well, what Donald Trump has done is exposed that we've been in a boiling pot for a long time. A lot of us been like simmering in that pot. I'm somewhat guilty of that, but no more. I'm out the pot and I ain't going back. No matter what happens, I'm not getting back in the pot. I am not going to be a sheeple. I am not going to be a subject of the realm. I am going to be a republic citizen of this great United States of America. That's what I'm doing. And I have taken the oath when I was elected to mayor, to defend this country, defend the Constitution against enemies, both foreign and domestic. I never usurped that oath, and I'm still with it today. So that's the best thing for the best chance. I wouldn't say the best thing for Donald Trump to become president. Ultimately, I think my friend is correct that we absolutely need to clean up this system. We have an obligation to do that no matter what. And I'll say that I was telling him this on the phone coming in. The thing that worries me, of course, obviously we need to keep the Senate no matter what. So that vote in Georgia is critical for that Senate seat, plus the presidency, no question. because you can't expect the Democrats are not going to clean up this system because it's working for them. Why would they want to? So without at least one chamber, let alone the presidency, we got no shot to clean it up this time around. But we better absolutely keep that and try to do it. I'm still not convinced that they will anyway. I'm not, because I've told you many times, rats don't like to convict rats. And without Donald Trump being president, I don't know that the Republican Party, and I hate to say this, I don't know even if they hold the Senate, if they got the backbone to do what is necessary to clean up this mess. I don't know that they do. I'm hoping they do. Ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard me say this before, but if I say it, it bears repeating. It's always been up to the American citizen. Nothing has changed. It was the American citizens, American people that won the Revolutionary War, that built this country one brick by brick or stone at a time. It's American people that are what make this country great. Not our leaders. We had some great leaders, but they wouldn't be squat without us. So it's ultimately always been about us. And it's going to come back to us right now. And so we have got to be plugged in and be citizens of the United States of America, or we all going to be subjects of the realm. That's just the way it is. It's a fluid situation no matter what. So, I could come up and tell you I see it differently Monday, because as the facts come out, the court cases happen, things are going to happen. I also got to put this out there, and don't misunderstand me. I am 100% behind Donald Trump winning back the presidency that he deserves, that the American people gave him and was stolen from. I believe that more now than ever. But also, when I was listening to this, and I don't know if other people saw this, I saw a good case for, if worst case scenario, God help us, Joe Biden becomes president, that Donald Trump, if he chooses to, now I've told you, Donald Trump has earned the right, whether he gets reelected or not, to ride off into the sunset at some day and enjoy his life with his grandchildren and his children. I don't expect him to do that. It's not in his nature. Now, he loves his family, don't misunderstand me. But there was a huge case, not intentionally, I don't think, for Donald Trump to run again in 2024 and overshadow Biden. I mean, think about it. If Biden, and even if he doesn't, even if it's President Trump, the election starts right away, because we need to take back that House, and we've shown we can in 2022. And 4 years goes by fast. I'm not advocating for that. I'm simply saying I see a path for the president to win the election he deserves. I laid it out for you a minute ago. But I also see him a path, if he wants to, and it might even be better just to come back and say, I'm back. Anyway, we'll see. All right, we got a few minutes left. I want to get into this story. It's somewhat complicated, so I'm only going to get into parts of it. What's happening out in California is happening all over the United States, especially in states run by Democrats. This is a Politico story. State-sanctioned segregation, California school closure debate boils over. Gavin Newsom is at the center of this, the governor. Pandemic politics have reached a boiling point in California's school reopening debate. And it's only going to get hotter, ladies and gentlemen. It's only going to get hotter. A hands-off approach by Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom and public pressure from powerful labor unions, the teachers' unions, has led the state's biggest city district, talking about LA and San Francisco and I guess San Diego, the schools shuttered, leaving most of California's 6 million public school children learning from home. Not a good situation. Even San Francisco, which has had one of the lowest infection rates of any U.S. city, I did not know that, hasn't attempted in-person teaching. So here's the thing. I talked a little bit about this yesterday with New York. School closings in California and in New York, which are closing as well, they're not based on science at all. They're based on negotiations with the teachers' unions and the government officials. The teachers' unions, and I'm not talking about all teachers, I'm talking about the teachers' union, like the Democratic Party, the rats that have taken over the teachers' union. They don't want to go back. They're getting paid no matter what, and they're looking at a power grab. Remember, the head of the LA school district said a few months ago that she didn't see any reason for, she kind of let the cat out of the bag. She didn't see any reason for the schools to reopen until after November 3rd. You think that's a coincidence? But they're not doing it. That's one thing we got to do. We got so many issues in this country that I know I'm going to wear you out with them, but I'm going to keep bringing them up. And one thing is we got to take back our schools one school district at a time. We need people to run for school boards everywhere. That needs to happen because a lot of people ask me, oh, I want to run for something. And the first thing they want to run for is state legislature or something like that. And I'm all for it. I'm all for people running for everything. But don't forget our school boards. We desperately need people to run for that. And it's doable pretty much everywhere. As the pandemic wears on, more Democrats are sounding the alarm after staying silent earlier this fall. They're increasingly distressed that California's approach has widened the gap between low-income communities of color and wealthier white families. Well, let me just ask you, what has government improved? I mean, has government ever really improved? The only thing I can really think of that government may have improved, and they fall short here lately, but they created essentially the national park system, which is a blessing for this country. Guess who created it, by the way? It was Republicans. Old Abe actually saved the trees out there, the sequoias and the redwoods during the Civil War. Go look it up yourself. You could Google it, but Google is of the devil. What is it? DuckDuckGo. Check it out. And then, of course, Teddy Roosevelt essentially created the national park system as we kind of see it today. So Republicans did that. You know, you get a lot of lies out there about Republicans. Let me just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, don't expect the Democrats to fix these school systems. They're not going to do it. They never have. Why would they now? Donald Trump, and this is something you people that voted the other way need to understand. Donald Trump, what he is about is making money. And you say, oh, what do you, I'm talking about in general. He believes that if you got money in your pocket, this is my opinion, not his necessarily, but my opinion. If you want to understand him, this is how I understand. He believes if you got money in your pocket, you can figure out your religion, your school choice, if you have one, all that kind of stuff, who you sleep with, don't. You can figure all of that out on your own if you can have money. If you don't have money, then everything is on the table. All that other stuff takes a back seat. And keep in mind, the Democrats, they even say this, they're the party of the poor. So what do they need? More poor folks. That's it, more billionaires and more poor folks. Frustrations, oh, by the way, if you go back and look at that press conference, I didn't mention this, but Sidney Powell laid out a case that starts with George Soros and just gets bigger. I mean, if you want to know who's really pulling the strings, she pretty much painted that picture really well. So check it out. Frustrations hit a new level in October, back to this school issue in California, when Newsom said his own children had returned to private schools in Sacramento where public school students in the surrounding neighborhoods remain home. Now leaders in the governor's own party are turning on him, saying the status quo has left the state with crisis-level inequity. So, in other words, perfect communist there. Do what I say. Don't worry about what I do. He's got his kids in private school. Do you know that is not uncommon? Let's talk about the teachers for a minute. There was a recent survey that came out. Don't hold me exactly to these numbers because I'm kind of pulling them off the top of my head. But to give you an example, like in Philadelphia, and this is similar all over the country. In Philadelphia, they did a survey of teachers in public schools in Philadelphia, and it was like 48%, almost 50% of those school teachers had their kids in private school, yet they are against school choice. What does that tell you? And that happens in various forms and fashions all over the country. Welcome to communism, ladies and gentlemen. Do what I say. Don't worry about what I do. Gavin Newsom, I'm not going to play it because we already played it. I was going to play it about his apology, but I want to move on because I want to make sure I cover some of this other stuff. But Gavin Newsom, I'm sorry, he apologized, and I played the video yesterday where he was talking about, he went to this birthday bash, violated the mask rules indoors with 12 people, $400 a plate, and he said in his apology, that you need to pay attention to the spirit of what he's preaching. In other words, don't look at what I'm actually doing. Just go along with the spirit. I'm on your side. I mean, good Lord, you keep getting these people. Patrick O'Donnell of Long Beach, Democrat from Long Beach, all these people are Democrats, the chair of the State Assembly Education Committee, said California's system amounts to a state-sanctioned segregation. So he's playing the race card on these other liberals. He says some kids get to go and some don't. That's not what California stands for, he said. I think we need to move faster but remain thoughtful. He says that's not what California stands for. Yes, it is. Sure it is. It's what you voted for, sir. You voted to elect progressive Democrats to the top of your system across the board, and you expect them to actually care about your children? I mean, I'm got to help this guy. I'm going to try to help this guy. Did you see this video, sir, back during the campaign? When the one guy who told you exactly what he is? Check this out. Joe Biden.
Your party wants to go socialist
My
medicine
party is
and
me.
socialist
right
healthcare.
now, I am
and
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of.
That's good enough. I am the Democratic Party. I take these progressives as were. Joe Biden, whether he becomes president or not, I mean, God help us. He said it right there. He is the Democratic Party, and no one really challenged him on that, right? Well, then you fast forward to basically they won't answer any questions. So let me get his name right. I want to make sure, Mr. Patrick O'Donnell, you're a Democrat. You're voting for Democrats. Democrats now have come out. They don't have to answer to you. They don't have to answer questions. They don't have to base their decisions of closing these schools down on science. And for God's sakes, when it comes to your kids, especially kids of color, I mean, Joe Biden was as clear as he could be when he was cognizant he could be back in 94 with the Joe Biden crime bill when he told you he don't care. He don't care why your kids are thugs, what he call them, super predators. Just lock them up. So this is who you elected. I hope he don't make it. But Gavin Newsom is who you elected. My dad used to say all the time, we get the government we deserve because we get who we voted for. Of course, he didn't realize that now we get is whoever cheats the best, I guess. And Donald Trump's not a cheater. California's experience should shed light on complications Democratic president-elect, the article, not me, will face in the coming months as he encounters more calls from parents and elected officials to help the growing number of students struggling with distance learning. Complications, they say. What is complicated? As I just told you, Biden's not complicated. He's already told you about your kids. He don't care. Why didn't you take him at his word? Why would you vote for these people and expect something to be different? They are being exactly what they claim to be. It says here, it's possible that labor unions and parents will have more confidence in a Democratic administration to ensure classroom conditions are safe. Show me one major city, one major school system that is better under Democratic rule. That you'd want to put your kid, hey, like I told you, the teachers in Philadelphia, they know what's up. I mean, show me one. Was it Baltimore? You remember Baltimore, it came out during Elijah Cummings' deal, that not one single kid in all of Baltimore's public school system was proficient in reading, writing, and arithmetic. Not one. So I want to play you this. This is Kimberly Kalasic. She was running, I might not play the whole thing, but you'll get the gist of it. She ran and unfortunately did not make it, ran a super campaign for Elijah Cummings' old seat. She's a black woman, Republican. She put out this video that kind of went viral. We're going to play some of it right now. Check it out.
Do you care about Black lives? The people that run Baltimore don't. I can prove it. Walk with me. They don't want you to see this. I'm Kim Klacik. This is Baltimore, the real Baltimore. This is the reality for Black people every single day. Crumbling infrastructure, abandoned homes, poverty, and crime. Baltimore has been run by the Democrat Party for 53 years. What is the result of their decades of leadership? Baltimore is one of the top 5 most dangerous cities in America. The murder rate in Baltimore is 10 times the U.S. average. The Baltimore poverty rate is over 20%. Homicide, drug, and alcohol deaths are skyrocketing in our city. Do you believe Black Lives Matter? I do. The vast majority of crime in Baltimore is perpetrated against Black people, who make up 60% of the population. So why don't we care about our communities? The Democrat Party have betrayed the Black people of Baltimore. If the politicians walked the streets like I do, they would see exactly how their policies and corruption affects us.
I think we get the point. She was a fantastic candidate. She lost. I'm not that surprised, but she lost. So apparently, and I don't know, she may have been cheated out of it. I'm not getting into all that, but she lost. You get the people in Baltimore, it's hard to feel sorry for them. But if you think about it, of course, Baltimore makes up the bulk of the voting in Maryland. Let me just give you some numbers. Joe Biden, put the cheating aside for just a moment, if you can, got 65.53%. I don't think anybody's surprised that he won the majority in Maryland. President Trump only got 32% of the vote in Maryland. And you wonder why the school system in Baltimore is going to hell, why the city is just falling apart. The Democrats, this is what they do. You're not, that old insanity thing about expecting different results. If you keep electing the Gavin Newsoms in California, the Bill de Blasios and Cuomo's in New York, the Lightfoots in Chicago, don't expect things to get better. The only thing that's guaranteed there is they're going to get worse, man. This debate is complicated in the nation's most populous state, talking about California. The divide between rich and poor remains stark. And let me just say this. I rarely ever say this. But when it comes to California, unfortunately Baltimore, a lot of these other cities, New York City, I don't think you got much hope. And I'm a person that believes in hope. I'm a very optimistic person. My own life story is one of triumph over my own demons. And I've talked about that with you before. We'll talk about it again sometime. But I believe in, man, faith is everything. I believe that there's nothing that's not possible if you have, faith with the works and God and grace and everything else. So I rarely hear me say you have no hope, but I don't think you got much hope in those places. The only thing that gives me hope in places like Baltimore is this next video I'm going to play you. This was a couple years ago. This was a black woman. Her son was protesting during the, I think the Rudolph protests or whatever, in front of her school. And she took matters in her own hands. Check it out. I love that part. She says, you don't want to be seen, and she's trying to snatch that hood off his head, man. We need more mamas like that. If that's what does give me hope, that a mama like that, because I'm telling you right now, when I see that, it reminds my wife. I'm telling you right now, and I love her to death. If one of our boys was doing what that boy's doing, my wife would be down there putting a knot on that boy's head just like hers. Every time I see that, I say, oh yeah. I know exactly where my mama would have done the same thing. I'm telling you, we need more mamas like that right there. You know what you can do? Be a mama like that. Go and take your boy and snatch a knot on his head if he's going to do so. I hate to say you got no hope, because she gives me hope every time I see that. Let's read this and we'll probably close up the show here. Reopening proponents, talking about the schools out in California, say growing evidence shows that school transmission is not widespread if safety precautions are taken, and the countries elsewhere have kept schools, because they have. We talked about masks a little bit yesterday. Check out our show from yesterday. And kept schools open while shutting down most other sectors. They're actually using science, or they're expecting science. This ain't about science. The whole lockdown, shutdown, everywhere. They're shutting down Thanksgiving. They're shutting down churches. They're keeping the schools closed. And none of it has anything to do with science. It has to do with being subjects of the realm. That's what's becoming more clear. And I'm not downplaying the coronavirus. But what is being exposed to here is the system, from the election system all the way down to the Republicans, the Democrats, the swamp, as you can hear it gurgling as it's refilling, anticipating Donald Trump not winning, which God, I hope he does, because we need to keep draining that swamp. But they're anticipating, this is what they're anticipating Donald Trump going away, and you and me, MAGA hat wearing sons of guns, going with him. If that happens, then we don't have much hope, unless we get some more mamas knocking heads out there. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page. Like it, share it with others. We're exploring all kinds of new ways to get the message out there. And so, as I said, chime in on Facebook, on YouTube, wherever you're watching the show. Give me suggestions. As I say, I now have a Parler account. I now have a MeWe. I'm going to be on a brand new network starting next week. I'll give you more details as that opens up. Remember our sponsor, Big Daddy Unlimited. Not everybody can be a fighter, but everybody can support those of us in the fight. So check out your Second Amendment headquarters, Big Daddy Unlimited. At the top of our show, no matter where you're watching it, you'll see a link to our sponsorship page. Do yourself a favor, check it out. Have a great weekend. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for the nation and the President of the United States, which is still Donald J. Trump, because both of them have earned that. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.